Hi, and welcome to this edition of Oxford Empowered. I'm Brenda Pierce, the Empowered Nurse, here to triage body, mind, and spirit. And this month's episode is all about body, mind, but most of all, spirit. Just recently, I launched a book called The Secret Child: Life After Loss. And myself and a friend of mine from 10 years, Dr. Sue Dank, decided and found out that we were parents of loss. And so it's been our heartfelt mission to put a book together. And in this book, we've shared the stories, the legacy, the wisdom, and the learnings along the way through the journey of grief. And we've brought several parents together to share their stories with us. And today we're going to share some of our local parents that are in the book as well, because really it is about legacy. It's about bringing light to those that we have loved so deeply and dearly, and giving the lessons and the learnings, the teachings, and most of all, the love from parent to child that transcends time and space. And so with us today, we have Bernadette Couture, Brenda Forrest, and Teresa Sims, who are three of the contributors to the book. So this first segment, we're going to talk with Bernadette. Hi, Bernadette. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Bernadette, you have two beautiful daughters, which really inspired me to create this book. And your daughters passed away almost 50 years ago from a tragic accident. Yeah, it was my first blush with child loss, and it really impacted me through the years, because your home and my grandmother's home backed on to each other. And your daughters and I were schoolmates, and we met every Saturday at the tree in the garden. And we had, you know, when the accident happened just before Christmas in 1973, right?
Yeah, the 23rd.
Yep, the 23rd of December. It impacted me tremendously. And then when I lost my own son, it really brought to me full circle, you know, child loss and transcending the time and space. I'd love for you to show us the pictures of Suzanne and Monica, your beautiful daughters, if you just want to hold them up in front of you there. And this is Suzanne. This was my closest friend.
Susan and Monica.
Yeah.
10 and 11 years old. The only two daughters we had.
Yeah. You had 6 children.
Yes.
Yes, and these were your only daughters.
4 sons and 2 daughters.
Tell us about the faith that it took you to get through transcending the pain of loss.
Well, first I got lots of faith. Without it, I could get through it. And some night I went to bed and I wake up during the night, and in my brain I had some words, so I opened the light and started to write, because the next day I won't be there in the morning.
Yeah.
I cried my eyes out for my daughter, but that's how I wrote a poem about them.
Yes, you wrote a poem about Christmas in heaven, and we're privileged to have this poem in this book.
Yeah.
And you've written it. You were told as a child that you were going to be a writer, but you never ever thought it would be about your own daughters. No.
And later on, after I wrote the poem, I wrote to the teacher. She said, "Remember I told you were going to be a writer?" And she said, "Don't write too much for your daughter." She said, "They are 2 angels," which they are.
Yeah, they are. They truly have been angels. And they've helped you to really move forward into a life of service, right?
Yeah.
In the community?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
I did lots, because without them I had some spare time, and I started to volunteer all over in the church and the school. I talked to the kids at school for 8 years before confirmation because of my faith.
Yeah.
And I done something, they want me to go back. I'm 9 years old, they want me to go back and talk to them again.
Yeah, yeah.
So I must make a difference.
You made a difference, and the poem that's in our book you've also had it published previously as well in a book that really has brought you a lot of people. It's touched a lot of people around the world,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
It's all about legacy, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you don't have faith, you can go through that. So.
That's right. Yeah. So thank you very much for being with us. And I just want to, before we go to break, mention we are filming today at Lighthouse Treasures in Tillsonburg, and they're our show sponsor for today. If you want to come down and have some beautiful inspiration in their gifts and their works of literary works, please come on down, support local business. It really makes a difference. And so we'll join us right back after this break. And we're back. And we're here at Lighthouse Treasures in downtown Tillsonburg, and we're continuing the story, the sagas of some of our contributors to the book, The Secret Child Life After Loss. Because when we lose a child, they're in our heart. They may no longer be in our hand. But for us, holding a book with our stories is so meaningful. It gives life and legacy to our children again and fills our hearts with such joy. And in this conversation, I have Brenda Forrest, who is also someone who lost a child. You lost your son,
Yes.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Yes.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about the story.
Well, Kevin was 9.5, and he was down a side road with a little friend, and they pulled out to come home to our place, and as they pulled out, there was a car coming. So my son's little friend pulled to the right of the road, and our son pedaled his bike across the road, but there was a steep ditch. Aww. So he was at the edge of the road, and for some reason the car just veered towards him, and so he was killed instantly. Yeah.
You know, and this is the thing is we can start our day never expecting that things are going to happen, and before you know it, something tragic can happen within a blink of an eye. I thank you so very much for stepping forward and sharing your story, because the loss of your son really compelled you into a different trajectory in your life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's true. Like, life goes on, and you never think that something like that can happen, and in a heartbeat, your whole life changes. And you realize that life is short, and you need to do the important things to tell people that you love them. And, I think that after our son passed away, there was like a wall there, and we would say, did that happen before Kevin passed away or afterwards?
Yeah.
And so
it's a measuring stick,
it
isn't
it is.
It really is.
Yeah.
So for you, losing your son, what did that do really to you? It brought more faith to you?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it also brought a new career path to you, didn't it?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I think we drew closer to God. We had a strong faith. We believed that Kevin went to heaven. So, that is what got us, through the first few days, the first few months, the first few years, and until today.
Yeah.
I had applied to go to school in the spring, and then Kevin passed away on June the 26th. So I had to make a decision of whether I still wanted to go through for a nurse. And so, after talking to our family and even our minister and our friends, we decided that I would go through for a nurse. And it really was, it was healing for me, and it was healing for my husband, because we worked side by side.
Yeah.
And so the days would go by, but when I was away, I would come back, and, we could share the day, and, it was really a healing time, I think, for both of us. Yeah.
And I think too, when you go through personal tragedy like that, it does put you on a trajectory of being a better person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in your nursing career, you've seen a lot of life come and go as well. But I think, knowing myself too, going through the experience of losing a child, is it makes you much more compassionate to the human condition and pick up more on the little things.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not you know, nobody ever signs up to join the club that we've joined.
That's right.
But when you're there, it changes your life in such a way that our children really did not want us to leave us to hurt us. They really didn't. They really want us to be better people. And I thank you for being part of the book and being one of those better people in my life. I didn't realize until last summer that you had lost a son. But that when I realized that, I went, that was why Brenda was such an excellent nurse through the years.
Well, thank you. And thank you. I'm honored to be able to write my story and put it in the book. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. So the idea behind the book is to help us all to be better people and to let people, parents of loss, know that they're not alone in their journey and their struggle. We never get over grief. We can only journey through it. And when we know that we're not doing it alone, that just brings us strength and courage to carry on. And I thank you so very much. And remember, you can pick this book up in Amazon, or you can contact any of these beautiful women here off our show. We'll be glad to direct you to getting a copy of this. And together, you know, when you first read the book, when you got the book and you read it, what did you think?
I felt that it would help many, many families. I just thought it was a blessing. Some of it is hard to read, but it's something that I believe parents that are going through the same thing wonder if what they're feeling is, you know, they wonder. And so by reading the book, I think, you know, they can, it's healing for them too.
Yeah, it is. It is. And so if you are a parent of loss, or if you know somebody who has lost a child, get this as a special gift for them as well. You know, we all know someone, we're all touched by it some way or another. And with that, we're going to go to break now. So join us right after this message. And we're back. And today's episode is really a heartfelt mission of my own to share with you the journey of grief. And even though grief for many of us happened decades ago, it's very cathartic and healing to share the stories of our grief, to help transcend our pain and help our healing, but also to help others as well, which is what the legacy of the book is all about, and bringing to light our own stories. You know, the premise of the book is child loss, which is difficult for any person to deal with. But when you start to put the faces and the stories together, such as we are here today, it is not an abstract thought. It happens, and it's a reality that many of us parents have to deal with. And there are various stages of loss. Some of our children never even saw the light of day or took a breath. And some of them were in the full throes of life and the journey of growing and expanding their lives, and it was cut too short. And others, it's disease and illness that can affect our children in such a way of any age. And so my next guest today is Teresa Sims. And you know her as an area author, and she has been on Oxford Empowered a couple times already. But she's here today because she's part of the book. She's part of the family in the pages of The Secret Child, Life After Loss. And Teresa shares her story of loss and how impactful it was and how healing it was to write it.
Absolutely. My loss was much different than yours and Bernadette and Brenda's. My child did not see the light of day, unfortunately, or did not take a breath. And that was my third miscarriage that I'd had. So in between my 2 live births, I had lost 3. This one in particular was very difficult for me because I was alone at home, had no warning signs, went to the washroom, and there was my child. And then I had the enjoyable task of collecting the child, and taking it to the hospital, and then being told that I had had an abortion. And those words stuck with me, and I absolutely detest those words to this day. Now this is almost 40 years ago now, and it still has a huge impact. And you're right, it was grief that I had never dealt with, didn't know how to deal with. There was no help for things like that, with my situation anyway, at that point in time. And I had a spouse that was absent, sort of. He was there, but every other way he was absent. So it was very difficult for me to process what had gone on.
Yes.
However, life goes on, and you move on, and you do your thing, and you have your the rest of your family, you raise your children. Being a part of this book for me was so healing. And I mean, it's very close to the surface for me right now, because in writing this, yes, I've written it, that's part of the process, but there's still the part of dealing with the grief that happened so many years ago.
Yeah.
So that's my journey to face right now.
And it's really amazing because grief was not openly talked about. No. You know, and to be honest, the people that we think are our support circle will grieve for us as long as they need to. But when they're complete, they think we should be too. Or they never even acknowledge it because they didn't really realize, right?
Exactly.
And so in your circumstance, it was a very silent grief because the child was so small.
Absolutely. It fit in my hand. And that's how I went to the hospital. And I do not think my spouse at the time was able to grieve. There had been so much loss in his life already that just adds something else to it. But in a woman, I mean, you carry that child. That child is yours. That child is part of you. You are part of that child.
Yes.
You can't just slough it off. No. And we do not have to sit there stoic like we're expected to and just swallow it and say, I'm fine, everything is okay. Because it really isn't.
It isn't. And
Not
that's
at
the
all.
truth. Yeah.
We need to go through the steps.
Yeah.
And we have to find our way through. I don't want to say garbage, but we have to find our way through the fog and the mud and see what's left for us on the other side of that.
That's right. Exactly true.
You know, so I do have, you know, 2 healthy grown sons and 2 healthy grown stepsons, but there is still that missing piece, you know, those 3 little missing pieces that I didn't get to share
Yeah.
and experience. So
Piece of the puzzle missing.
yes, exactly, piece of the puzzle.
It is a puzzle. So the thing is, though, and it was interesting because going through this relatability that we all have, we're missing a piece. A piece of us is missing in our heart, and yet a piece of us is in heaven with our child. And the interesting thing is that I've also learned through the last little while too, that when we conceive our children and we're carrying them, we always were taught or thought to think that we're nourishing them. It's a one-way street, but it isn't. It actually is that stem cells from them are impregnating themselves inside of us. And so when we're realizing that we have this intuitive sense that a piece of us is in trouble or peril or missing, it's because their cells are inside of us. And it's actually part of the protective mechanism of motherhood. Really is. That's why mothers are so probably, you know, the most demonstrative part of grief for a child, because we held them, we hold them, and we are so impacted by it. Men are different. They grieve differently based on their own experiences, but it really is important for us to know that the grief process is something we all need to honor and to really share with the world.
Totally agree. And I think that this is one of the reasons I needed to be in this book and be part of it, was to help other people to understand that grieving is okay.
Yeah.
It's ugly, it's messy, it's all those sorts of things they talk about, but it's necessary to survive and to thrive after.
Exactly true. Thank you. And thank you for being a part of this book and being here with us
Thank
today.
you.
You can learn more about the book by going to www.thesecretchildbookseries.com. We look at this as volume 1 on the journey of many people's lives, and we'd love to hear from you. If you have a story of your own secret child that you would love to share, and the legacy and impact that they have had on us as parents surviving, please write us and connect with us. So we're going to break, and we'll be right back after this. And we're back. And in this last segment, I just want to share a little bit of my own story too. I was expecting twins, and I didn't even know it. My husband had a serious farm accident shortly after conceiving. And during those formative times, the stress affected my one son's heart and lungs and the vessels that go to it. He appeared to be healthy and normal. They were fraternal twins, and they were growing beautifully. But when the time came to deliver, one son was born breech and healthy, and the other son was born sickly. We didn't even know if he'd live 24 hours, let alone 4.5 months. And during that 4.5 months, our little son, Kenny, was amazing. He had to stay in the PCCU at Children's Hospital, and that was where he lived. And it was after open heart surgery he passed. His heart stopped beating, and we watched as he opened his eyes one last time, and they were the bluest blue. He passed away, and his little life had meaning. It touched a lot of people's lives at Children's Hospital. And as such, I didn't have really time to grieve my loss because I had another healthy baby at home. I had to get right in there. And my son Kevin helped to resuscitate me through those difficult times. That was over 33 years ago. And as you can see, the impact is still there. That's what you get in this book. The impact of lives touched by loss, but willing to share, because we know that our children live in our stories. They loved us, they had purpose, and they had meaning. And as such, I hope that you will pick up a copy. You can order it online through Amazon or through the website, thesecretchild.com or thesecretchildbookseries.com. You can find us on Facebook. There's actually a Facebook page where we share a lot of our stories and impact, but most of all, the legacy of light. For when our children pass, they never meant to hurt us. This is one really big thing that a lot of people of child loss need to know. So many just want to give up their life and end it right then and there when their child dies. But we are their legacy. Our heart beats for them, we breathe for them. And as we've shared already this afternoon, a piece of them is really inside of us. And so we are their legacy. So with that, I share. Join us next time on Oxford Empowered. And remember to always know that you are blessed and you are a blessing. You are loved and you are loved. So bye for now.